how's it going? Welcome to Mama Mandala. I'm Hagar. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a new moon. It's a new moon in Pisces. And Pisces is the sign that ends the zodiac cycle. It's the end of a journey that takes us from that sprouting, initiating energy of springtime, which begins with the sign of Aries. So we have that coming up right after this ceremonial ending. And it's a journey that takes us through all these different archetypes that the zodiac wheel, that the zodiac signs give us access to. And it ends with Pisces, which is that primordial fish that swims into the end of time, into the ending of all, into emerging with the infinite. It takes us into the vastness of the universe. In fact, it doesn't exactly take us into the vastness of the universe, it's the vastness of the universe embodied, which interestingly we all are, because we all are the embodiment of all these different archetypes. And it, from this moment of an ending, of a dissolution, of a merging with the wholeness of being, is sparked and initiated the new cycle, that recursive quality of nature that is going to take us into Aries again, right? So it's a mutable sign. Pisces is a mutable sign, which means it carries us from the ending of a season toward the next one. So it kind of governs this moment of transition, of completion, so that a new possibility can emerge. And it's a water sign, so it has that capacity of mutability and the fluctuating qualities of water, the ability of water to take the shape of its container. We hear that so often. And what's really amazing, and sometimes is forgotten about the element of water, is that it also reshapes the container, but over a long period of time, right? If you look at what water does to a container, it starts to make the marks of its being. If you see the way that water runs through rock, it carves new patterns on the rock, and over time it can create holes in rocks, right? So it doesn't only take the shape of its container, it also changes the shape of the container, but over a longer period of time. Pisces is that invitation to be both the vessel that holds the entirety of the experience that we have, because there's something about Pisces that takes us into the remembrance of the expanse, right? So it is often thought of as the mystic archetype. It's often thought of as the power of transcendence. Now, that can be helpful in to a certain degree in certain moments sometimes, but personally, I think sometimes transcendence is taking us into unhealthy places. Like everything has its shadow, but transcendence is sort of taking us through the way that that spiritual there's a spiritual world, that spiritual communities, that spiritual seekers sometimes spiritually bypass the experiences of life and the important moments of initiation in life, and the important moments that take us through take us through a transition that offers us new pathways. Because the point of transcendence is sometimes to take us away from pathways. If we think back at older, more classical ways of the yoga tradition, for example, if you think of classical yoga's Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is sometimes thought of as the most important text of the yoga tradition because it bears the words Yoga Sutras, right? But it's actually not. It actually, if you look historically at the importance of the text, it's not as important as other texts, or not more important than other texts, but in its core, it is taking us into a process that takes us into the basically samadhi in Sanskrit, that state of being that is beyond the fluctuations of human life. It takes us through a process that carries us into this equanimity and equilibrium. Sounds really tempting sometimes, right? Especially when the world is all over the place, especially because life is really hard, especially because when we care deeply, we also hurt deeply. But the point of life perhaps isn't to overcome its ups and downs, right? Pisces wants us to be taken into that vast ocean underneath the currents, into where we are dissolving into the primordial soup. But what happens with the melting of form into the soupage of life is that out of the cocoon within which we melt into a soup, we reemerge as something new. There's the imaginal cells in the chrysalis that shape the melting soupage of the caterpillar and form it slowly into a butterfly. Not to overly do this metaphor and this great creature of the butterfly, but there's something very powerful when we remind ourselves, and this is just my invitation, that's just my perspective, it's not the truth with a capital T, because I don't think there is such a thing. And that's exactly the point, right? Because Pisces takes us into this expanse with a capital E, into absolute, merging with the absolute sometimes is what I see people describe the Pisces energy. And when we start to give the capital letters to words, and it takes it into a space where it becomes ultimate, where it becomes, oh, that's like the actual truth, where in fact truth is nuanced, where in fact there is no absolute, because everything, at least in the universe that I live in, everything lives in relationship to other things. So that oneness that Pisces invites us into can be, and mostly does, looked at as this that place where we merge, and that's it, where there's an invitation that I am leaning into and inviting you to consider, that perhaps instead of merging with oneness as this ultimate thing that we reach, instead of doing what Patanjali kind of teaches in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, to arrive at samadhi and that's it, to take the journey of the cyclical nature of nature, to invite ourselves and carry ourselves and receive each other in the journey of life as a recursive possibility. Because the point isn't to stay in the chrysalis as a soup, right? Because the point maybe isn't to arrive in this equilibrium, in this equanimity, in this end of it all, and kind of sit on the mountaintop and meditate forever. Although that sounds, especially in the heat of this historical moment, it sounds so great. I'm constantly looking for ways to escape. I'm constantly pondering and imagining escape routes. So I'm not criticizing the desire to create some utopia and this expansive state that we can arrive in and finally stop suffering. But then what happens when we start to suffer again, right? Then, because we will, right? Then what are we going to do when things get difficult again, when new challenges arise? Because when you arrive at utopia, guess what? new challenges will arise because nothing is perfect, because there is no ultimate. And maybe at death we will arrive in this total peaceful state. But the point of life is to learn how to travel through the entirety of our experience. Maybe that's the point for me. Maybe that's one point, because that's the point, that there is no one point, that there is no one goal, perhaps, that there is no one state to arrive at. Because when you climb a mountain and you reach the top, it's really beautiful, and you look at the views and it's incredible. But all the things you've seen along the way, all the experiences that you've gathered as you've traversed the difficulties of a journey, are important and are valuable, and they make up the architecture of the story of who you are in relationship to your environment. And when you sit there, up there on the mountain, some spiritual traditions then say that our work is to go down from the mountain and share what we've learned, that expansive view and that big picture and that mountaintop consciousness. That's very much the Piscean consciousness. Sometimes Pisces is talked about as Christ consciousness, as Buddha nature, which are all, listen, beautiful, wonderful energies to play with and to integrate. But in my humble opinion, they cannot be the only pieces to integrate and to make more important than others, because the mountaintop is not more important than the valley underneath, and all the caves that we have found shelter in along the way, and all the beings that we are meeting as we journey toward the top. So the point, maybe for some spiritual traditions, then they say that the point is to come down and teach the rest. That's kind of like that bodhisattva energy in Buddhism, and we have in Kashmir Shaivism and Tantra also that invitation. Okay, now you come down and you share it. Although for them often it's like to stay up, but it's very linear kind of view of life. It's very, in a way, in an encoded way, not in a gender way. It's very masculine. It's very much, okay, there's a goal, I'm going to conquer it, and that's it, right? That's kind of where it's at. It's at that goal. But what about the other mountains around? There are other peaks. There are other experiences to plunge into, down in the rivers below the mountain, right? Or the streams that flow from the top to the bottom. Right in those streams, there's that fish. Right in the streams, in the rivers that carry us all the way into the ocean, which is that other place, that other goal, right? Okay, mountaintop, amazing. Then it's the vastness of the ocean. That's kind of more associated with Pisces. And in the ocean, there is that vast expanse that is so valuable and important and powerful for us to tap into, because we're going to encounter moments in life where things feel really, really tight. And water has that ability to flow into really tight places, into really stuck places. And not only to flow into the tight and stuck places and bring that life-giving energy of water to the places that feel confined and difficult, but also to slowly, because water not only takes the shape of its container, to slowly carve a new path, because water also changes the form and the shape of its container. So we're not only flowing into the tight areas to give life and give nourishment and bring that feminine encoded nurturing energy of water, but also carve new pathways and start to very slowly, in that water way, break the barrier, to slowly carve a path through the barrier, right? Because the point of our one of the points, right? It's again, I try to catch myself when I kind of come to a conclusion as like that is the conclusion, to sort of bring that into a space where, okay, that is one aspect of the conclusion, right? Because the vastness of the ocean gives us the ability to then spark new life. All life comes from the ocean. So into the dissolution, in the merging with that primordial fish quality and energy, we're also re-emerging into and through more and new and re-sparked possibilities, right? Because Aries will arrive next, because the cycle now ends with the end of winter, and all that has died has decayed and nourished the soil. All that has decayed left its seeds. All that was seeded was in the dream world, and Pisces also gives us that dreamy, that Neptunian. So the planet that governs Pisces is Neptune. So it's this Neptunian, imaginative, dreamlike energy that's associated with that planet for whatever reason, for different reasons. We can explore that another time. But it's a dreamy place to take us through that last phase of germinating and to begin that sprouting process as spring arrives with Aries. Because all that's been dreamt of and all that's dissolved and all that's been dreamt of is now going to find its way into life. But that vastness is a very important part. It's a very important piece. But it's kind of nice to not think about it in that very hierarchical and vertical way, like climbing up the mountain, right? Kind of a way. Because that is a conversation that, again, it's important to have the context of a vertical line, and it's important to not make the vertical line the more important or the most important one, because the horizontal is also important, right? Because what is going to emerge out of that ocean of possibilities is as important as what we have dissolved. So it's a beautiful time to consider that to consider what's dissolving and what's being ignited, right? Because it's a meeting place, and we can meet it. We can see that. We can sort of arrive in these different moments, these different places in the wheel of the year, in the zodiac wheel, that give us opportunities to explore the concepts of death and rebirth. And Pisces is another one of those places, because it's the ocean of the infinite. It's the cosmic, oceanic vastness into which we lean and into which we dissolve so that new things can emerge. And it's this invitation to dissolve in the cosmic waters so that the waters of the womb can make something new, right? So that springtime can be the resurrection of life, the reemergence of new and now after winter, nourished in that deep down under the ground soil mycelium kind of qualities, right? So that it can find its way back up and out toward the light. And the light is growing, right? As we move into and toward the spring, we can feel in the northern hemisphere. So if you're in the southern hemisphere right now, you are moving into toward fall, right? It's the end of summer, which is also an interesting thing to consider this archetype from that perspective as well, because it's Pisces New Moon in the southern hemisphere as well. So that death quality arrives to announce the beginning of death if you are down under, right? That beginning of the process of dissolving, right? So wherever you are, wherever this catches you, even if this catches you at a completely different time than the new moon, and you're still here with us, everywhere we are gives us an opportunity to access a space that allows us to softly undress ourselves from certain things, to softly cultivate, to call in, to generate from within the vastness of our being, an expansive perspective. I think of that expansive perspective of Pisces as it's the expansive perspective that allows us to include all the other perspectives. It's not the perspective that is the correct one, but rather a space that's so vast that it holds all of the other things, even the things that we feel are no longer true or no longer necessary. There is space in that vastness to let those things dissolve, so we still hold them, because when you let go of things, they still need a place to go. So we still need to give them room. We need to give them soil. We need to give them water to dissolve into, to decompose. So the aspects of you that you are working with and working on shifting and changing, this is a sign of change and of shifting things around, mutable again, right? Of shape-shifting. In a way, Pisces gives us the invitation to take on different shapes instead of to dissolve all shapes. Because it is also that sign that ends the entirety of the cycle, it has gone through all the different archetypes. It's not showing up out of nowhere. None of them are. The beautiful thing about anything is that it is in relationship. I should kind of like to take us into that, the embrace of that concept that there's no absolute and everything is in this relational conversation. But with this archetype, we are learning to shapeshift. We are learning to fluidly move through all the aspects of ourselves, to hold in the vessel that holds the liquids of all that we are, And from this place, so that the completion is this integrative embrace. And from this place, we can initiate something new. We can spark a new way. And when we look at the world right now, and when we look at our own selves with our own reactive or not reactive enough energies, wherever it is that this finds you, I know a lot of people are so exhausted by this barrage of fascist energy coming at us so fast, right? Here in the US, it's very scary. I know in other places in the world, it's starting to get very, very scary as well. And what the U.S. for the world is something that is threatening more than just the U.S., right? So, and it's all interconnected. We're all in this together. That is kind of what Pisces. We sort of had that we're all in this together story and experience with Aquarius, which takes us into the collective, and now we melt with Pisces in that collective soup. And in that melting, we hold each other. We are in this together. And all of our parts are in this too. So we got to get all of our parts embraced and immersed in that spaciousness and in that immensity. And from here, we can spark and initiate and ignite something new that is going to be needed in the cycle to come, in the cycles to come. And I don't know about you, but I want to invite the vastness of me into the particularity that is coming up. Because Aries is going to take us into that place where it's very much rooted in the individual. So if it's rooted in the individual, I want to bring that immaculate interconnectedness of Pisces into the conversation that is going to begin with the particularity of Aries. And the particularity of Aries from the beginning of this zodiac cycle is held in the vastness of Pisces now. They're all in relationship. They're all in conversation. So you can take that into your own life and see where this touches you, and consider the places where you need a little bit more of a vast way of looking at things. You can ask yourself, so I sort of shared my opinion about transcendence. I'm not really into it. I'm not really into overcoming this and going to the next, and there's this immaculate and utopian state to achieve, right? So, but if it is your thing, amazing, you can explore that, but explore with it also the consideration of other ways, because I do think that in that vast expanse of vision that Pisces invites us into, there is the invitation to hold more than how we see things, and to be immersed in this is really where it's at for me. It's to be immersed in diversity. Even though Pisces is the sign, it's the archetype of oneness. What is oneness if not diversity and differences? What is oneness if not holding the entirety of this incredibly humongous, we call it infinite, even though now scientists say it's not infinite, it's just much bigger than we can ever be able to hold and calculate, but it has boundaries. But this universe is so big, and there are so many forms and shapes and so much out there. It's unbelievable. Like, we can't hold all of that in our head. So if we can't hold all that exists in ourselves, then that's amazing. Then that is an incredible invitation to go, wow, there is such vastness of differences and individuated forms that are not disconnected from the other individuated forms, but are all held in this fabric, in this net made of all that there is. And all that there is, this universe, this one verse, this oneness of being, is expressing and experiencing itself as plurality. We wake up in the morning, we go to bed at night, we might get glimpses of, whoa, oh my God, it's all one kind of a feeling, right? Like we get glimpses of it's all connected and my aura is purple. But this is not how we live, nor should it be, if I may offer that perspective. I don't think this is how we need to live. I think we need to live in, wow, this thought is very different. This way of thinking is very different. And even when I look at the fascism that's rising right now in the US, I can say, okay, I want to make room for other ways of thinking. I want to be in conversation with opinions that are different from mine. However, I will not accept the justification and the normalization of opinions that are oppressive and are dehumanizing for others. I will not accept opinions that are willing to destroy the natural world, to destroy us all. Right? So there are, and this is what Pisces is not good at, there are limits. Pisces wants to take us beyond limits, but I think in that inclusion of Pisces, we need to include limits. We need to include red lines. We need to say no very clearly, even though Pisces wants us to just not even say yes, just a complete merging of all things. And I think that in this merging of all things, we have to rise with clear boundaries. We have to have strong no's that we stand as. So this is longer than I intended it to be. If you still have energy to explore more of this in kind of like a poetic, written word kind of a way, I will leave a link for you for the written piece. It's on mamamandala.com in the essay section, and I'll leave a link for you in the description of this video. I hope this was interesting for you. If it was, put a like on it, share it with your people. If you're not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. There's more of these plus practices and thoughtful, I hope, conversations about different things. And I'll also leave a link for you in the description of the video to subscribe for my Substack, Mama Mandala Substack, because there's more exploration coming our way over there, and also shorter form written word and audio recordings of some of the longer pieces. So, and also I'm hoping to grow there a community of creative wildlings coming together and talking about all things mythological, archetypal, the current times, motherhood, how to nurture the world and one another, and how to not look at things in a simple way, but through a variety of complex and nuanced lenses. So, thank you. I appreciate you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.